What's up, everybody? Hardest part of the ring is here to host the Apron Bump. As per usual. And boy howdy, today it's all about the biggest party of the summer. Actually, I guess they weren't billing it as that at this point. I guess they didn't have the, I guess that really wasn't a thing until kind of recently. I don't know, I guess maybe they were just having a lot of big parties back in 1994, and this wasn't the biggest party, so maybe it was just a medium-sized party, but that's not really a good tagline for a pay-per-view. You're not going to get any buys doing that. I guess they weren't really getting many buys in 94 anyways. But I really need to start like having bullet points for these intros, because I just end up talking to myself. Well, I guess that's the premise of this podcast, isn't it? Whatever. Anyways, I will, as my cat tries to fight off a bug. Yes, today, SummerSlam 1994. A really good show, actually. You know, I've honestly been kind of underwhelmed by these WrestleMania 10, King of the Ring 1994. They're all fun to watch in their own ways, but it's like, man, it's like they're missing something for me. But SummerSlam 94 really hit. For the most part, at least. It's funny because, I knew this one was coming up, and I was like, man, all I really know that happens on this show is Owen Hart versus Bret Hart in the cage, and Undertaker versus Undertaker, but I don't really remember anything else that happened at SummerSlam 1994. And then I'm watching it, and it's like, man, those two matches literally take up most of the show. Like over an hour and a half is dedicated to Owen Hart and Bret Hart and Taker versus Taker, which, I mean, I guess they're the two main events, so maybe we'll allocate the most time to that. Makes sense, I guess. But won't ramble on too long, because God knows we ramble enough in the podcast itself. I have brought back on Kenny from the Kenny for Your Thoughts podcast. If you haven't listened to his podcast or watched his podcast on YouTube or Twitch or Instagram or OnlyFans or Chatterbait or whatever services he uses to broadcast his nonsense, give this man a follow. You can follow him on Twitter and Instagram at AKFYT Wrestling. And like I said, a Kenny for Your Thoughts podcast on all podcast platforms. He usually does a live episode every week. He's been doing some interviews lately as well. But yeah, really fun show to listen to. Not as fun as mine. But he's, is that a dick thing to say? I don't know. But no, him and his co-host Brandon have a really, really entertaining podcast every week. So give that a listen in addition to mine. Don't replace him with me just because we're both vaguely Asian and, our first names are South Park characters. So with that, I said I wouldn't ramble, but here I am rambling again. SummerSlam 1994 with myself and Kenny from the Kenny for Your Thoughts podcast.
And then it would be like weird because you have baby batter all over your face. This is just the time to be like horny and caffeinated.
That's what I was really doing. I was just finishing off a batch in the other room, and then
you made coffee.
Yeah, the natural progression.
It's funny. I made t-shirts. I actually made a t-shirt for you for Christmas that says "Horny, Caffeinated, Big Batches."
I already got one of those.
Oh, well, never mind. Sorry about that.
I hope you got the receipt to that. Did you ever watch Naked Gun? A weird segue. Not really a weird segue.
No. So I never liked Naked Gun, which is super weird because I'm a big fan of Airplane. So I like Leslie Nielsen. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know why I never got into Naked Gun.
Yeah, it's been years since I was probably very young when I watched them. I feel like I need to give him another chance, but I mean, I could just tell by the vignettes or whatever that he was doing with the Undertaker that I was like, that's the kind of comedy I can get behind. So
exactly.
This show might have sold me on Naked Gun, if nothing else.
Exactly. That's the thing, though. I was like maybe 5 at the time for this show, but like it was funny. He was pretty much parodying his Naked Gun character throughout this the whole build up to SummerSlam. But yeah, for some reason, I just never got into it. You know, because O.J. Simpson was in there, and I just didn't want to, didn't want to be associated with it.
That famous actor O.J. Simpson.
Yeah. I think. Let me Google him. I think that's the only thing he's really done, right?
I think he did. He had a fantasy football league or something.
Oh yeah. He did play football. Yeah.
He is
Wasn't
actually
he the one that landed on Joe Theismann.
Maybe I think he decapitated him. Actually,
yes.
I think it's the story. Oh no, wait, that's not him. That was somebody else. I think I'm getting all my stories mixed up here.
A little bit. What the hell is this podcast? I got to talk to my agent. Why the hell did he put me on it? Anyway, sorry.
You made a mistake one time, and now you're making it again.
No, don't be talking about my child like that.
I figured she couldn't hear, so it was okay.
What do you mean? She's capable of hearing in both her ears.
Man, that's more than I would expect from your spawn.
You mean my co-host, Brandon?
Yes.
On a Kenny for Your Thoughts podcast. Live this Saturday. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, we're gonna cut that out. This fucking guy. Big time on my podcast.
Big show.
So you said you're what, like 4 or 5 when this show happened? Yeah,
5 years old when this show happens. 94 is one of my favorite years of wrestling, which is super weird because I may have said this in the last time I was here. 93 is a year I do not remember at all with wrestling. Right. And my friend in high school, who's a big wrestling aficionado, was like, you know what? Like, you literally know everything except that year. Come to realize, it's because I lived in England that year. So I really didn't watch wrestling because you know how wonky the UK times are. If you ever hear UK fans, they're like, "Oh, we're watching wrestling at 5 a.m."
Hey, that's dedication.
Yeah,
that's more dedication than I could ever have.
Right, at 5 a.m, I'm probably just getting to bed after a real big bender. Out partying. You know me.
Yep, especially at 5 years old.
Yeah,
or 4 years old, whoever you were.
Absolutely, a lot of especially milk. In England.
A lot of 2%.
I am a 2%er. You're right.
Take that as you will. But yeah, 94, like you brought it up. I didn't even realize until I was kind of like thinking about it, but there was like so much stuff happening like around this time of this pay-per-view, because you have like Hulk Hogan debuting for WCW like a few weeks before this. You have Extreme Championship Wrestling starting up around this time. So it's weird to think, because 94 I've always felt was like a dead era. Like nothing much happened.
Isn't that weird? But it's like, I think it's because a lot of people go just off the WWF, but in the wrestling world, it was like a big year. But it was definitely a hard reset for the WWF, for sure. Because like this is the quote unquote new generation era, and like you said, Hulk Hogan went to WCW, so things were changing. So Bret was getting the ball, and I think that's why people look at it as a lull, because you always have to take a step backward to take 2 steps forward when it comes to repositioning your wrestlers,
Yeah, definitely some rebuilding years. I feel like if sports teams can have rebuilding years, I feel like a wrestling promotion should be able to too.
Absolutely. And it's underrated. Like you said, we all sleep on it, but like you really look back on it and it's like 94 was a really good year for professional wrestling. Yeah,
especially, WWF. I mean, it's definitely like, it's either hot or cold, a lot of stuff, but you got like the Bret Owen stuff. You got I don't know. I can't really think of it. You have the Razor Ramon,
the Undertaker storyline, I guess.
Man, just
and
all around beautiful.
And SummerSlam in general, so hot it's scary. I think was the tagline.
was that actually the tagline?
That's actually the tagline for SummerSlam 94.
Man, some things never change.
Oh man!
But speaking about super hot, we have our opening match. With we have the Head Shrinkers versus IRS and Bam Bam Bigelow. Now, fun fact for all you listeners. So the Head Shrinkers were the tag team champions,
right?
Like 48 hours before this or whatever. And they lost them at I guess it was a house show or something to
two
Shawn
dudes with
Michaels.
attitudes.
Oh man, that's
you
like
remember that name?
No, I do not. Was that their team name?
Yeah, legit. So it wasn't like the official name, but like commentary would constantly refer to them as two dudes with attitudes. In fact, I'm sure if you Google two dudes with attitudes, it pulls up Shawn Michaels and Diesel.
I doubt that. I doubt that's going to be the first. It's going to give me some links that I do not want to watch. Not at 9 in the morning.
I'll take the bullet.
I know you will.
Two dudes with attitudes. Here we go. Tag team formed in the first thing. You're a freaking liar. The first thing that pulls up is Diesel and Shawn Michaels.
Of course it is. We should just start our own podcast and call it Two Dudes with Attitudes.
We should.
And talk about nothing but Bull Nakano.
Damn it. You took my joke. I literally was thinking it was going to be a Bull Nakano based podcast, or as my typo on Twitter one time, I said Bill Nakano, which has now become a thing. It's
Stupid idiot.
The male version of Bull Nakano.
I mean, we don't know her husband or wife. She probably has a wife, actually. Now that I think about it.
Actually, Bull Nakano. We're skipping ahead apparently, but Bull Nakano is actually very beautiful. Google her, and you'll see that she looks nothing like she did in the wrestling. It's like Google, the current equivalent of googling Abaddon without makeup, and you're like, oh, she's actually really pretty. That's crazy.
I think I prefer Bull Nakano with the makeup. I don't know. It did something to me.
Right.
I think I discovered stuff about myself watching her match.
Me too. It was really the hairspray. The erect hair. Oh, come on. I gave you gold just now.
You gave me something. You gave me erect. Anyways, so... but we're getting ahead of ourselves. We got to hold our boners. We got blue balls for a second.
Yes, sorry. Boners for the head shrinkers. Sorry. Let's shrink our heads. Yes, let's shrink our
oh, man. Why did I have you on again? Why did I do this to
Because of this kind of conversation. Because I go into territory that your mind goes into, but you don't want to do on air.
I'm trying to talk about Rikishi, and you're bungling it.
Hey, whoa, Fatu and Samu.
Izzy. How many fucking Fatus are there?
A lot.
They can't think of a name. They just call him Fatu.
I mean, it's their last name. Damn.
I don't care. Not enough for me.
How many Joneses are there?
Or how many shysters there are. Oh, wait, it's just one. So IRS.
Good transition.
I will say, though, I do love watching Bam Bam Bigelow wrestle because he was like a little bit before my time.
Right.
So I never really got to watch him like as it happened, and I haven't gone back and watched a lot of his matches. But I feel like it's like the big man that moves quickly is like kind of a cliche nowadays.
Right.
But like back then, like it's like his body type doesn't match his physical, like the things he does physically. And
he's not even in his prime at this point, like 94. I would say his prime athletically, I should say, was about 1988. You go watch like a WrestleMania 4. Like he's doing handstands and cartwheels everywhere and toe touches. And I'm like, the hell is this guy, man? Like a 400-pounder doing all this stuff that most normal people can't do. So Bam Bam Bigelow was something special. Like probably the person to compare him to nowadays would be Keith Lee. But even then, Keith Lee doesn't do half the stuff Bam Bam Bigelow did. So that's a credit to Bam Bam.
Yeah. There's like a quickness that Bam Bam has. That's
right.
Just
an
ridiculous.
explosiveness.
Like, Yes. And I honestly, I saw this match on paper and I was like, this is gonna shit the bed. But watching it, I was like, this is kind of a fun match. Ultimately, the ending is kind of a dumb finish. It's just a DQ finish with like all the managers getting involved and it's a whole hullabaloo.
Right? So kind of what you were alluding to earlier, which was they had dropped the titles at a house show to Shawn Michaels and Diesel. So supposedly, and again, maybe we're skipping ahead, but obviously stuff is happening with the corporation at this event. Supposedly, Bam Bam Bigelow and IRS were supposed to win the tag titles, was the original plan to make the corporation storylines look a little bit stronger. But obviously they gave it to Diesel and Shawn Michaels because they want, because the click is the click. I guess apparently Shawn Michaels has actually said for the record, like he had no influence over that, but he and the click got a lot of heat because it was looked at as, they politic to win the titles.
Right. Yeah. This is kind of like the stages of that. Like, you're going to see a lot of their influence on the wrestling business for like the last half of this decade.
Right.
Really.
Exactly. So this right here, I mean, IRS and Bam Bam are definitely the first casualties of the clique there.
Yeah, I still think you could have given him a win, maybe. Even though if it's not the titles, maybe maybe they want to keep the head shrinkers strong too. But if that's the case, like why even book the match?
They booked themselves into a corner by having Shawn Michaels and Diesel win the titles a couple days before, and then you have this match already advertised. It's like, what can you really do?
Throw the Mounties in there. Have them take the fall or something.
Mounties.
I'm the Mounties.
We're not the Mounties.
We're not the Mounties.
So stupid.
Are they even stuck? Because they were at WrestleMania.
Yeah, I don't even think they're a team at this point.
I think one of the Rouge. Are they both Rougeau?
No. You're talking about what basically PCO. So Carl Ouellet. Right. I think he's in like ECW or something at this point, isn't he?
I think so. I think the other guy is like a announcer or something.
Yeah. Jacques Rougeau definitely went on to do like commentary for the WWF in the mid '90s.
Yeah, and then PCO went 40 years later,
went crazy,
won the ROH title.
Right, it's so crazy. Funny. He's like 147 years old, at least.
It's like at least. Now's the time to put the title on him.
But actually, a couple years later, he'd be stealing Bret Hart's jacket. I've never seen a storyline where it's like, you stole my jacket and you're a pirate, so I'm going to fight you.
There's, you spilled coffee on me. Let's fight for 3 months.
I mean, see, that makes sense because coffee is like the seed of the Lord. I mean, that's weird to say. Coffee's amazing, though. I can understand that, but a jacket with little frills on the side.
So you don't like Bret's jacket?
Oh, I love Bret's jacket.
Is that what you're saying?
I love Bret's jacket, but still.
Is that the scoop I'm getting on this podcast that Kenny from Kenny for Your Thoughts doesn't like Bret Hart's jacket?
Me and Bret Hart have heat over that jacket, actually, because he stole it out of my mom's closet.
Oh, how dare you. Speaking of your mom's closet, we have the WWF Women's Championship on the line here in this next match.
I refuse to record after this. This is the main event as far as I'm concerned.
It really honestly though, like we joke about Bull Nakano, but this match is actually like very out of place. Great.
Yes, absolutely.
Not great, but pretty good.
And just to give backstory on the state of the women's division. I mean, there was no women's division. They were treated as right. They were treated as second class citizens. You know what I mean? So, Alundra Blaze Medusa came in with a lot of fanfare, and she's wrestling someone she's familiar with, which is Bull Nakano. Which, fun fact, Bull Nakano was the first Japanese born wrestler to ever challenge for a title at this event.
Yes, she was.
Oh, she was. You were going to say, oh, my bad.
No. I mean, they said it on the show and commentary, I think, didn't they?
Yeah. So, and if anyone's sitting there going, what about Yokozuna or Mr. Fuji? They were born in like California and like Hawaii, respectively.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, Yokozuna isn't even Japanese.
Right, so. Exactly. So just in case anybody's trying to fact check me, trust me. Just trust me. I don't even, no Google right here. Just trust me. I know my stuff.
Straight off the dome.
Right.
Bigger Daddy Nakano.
Tell people why you called me that.
Nope. I'm just going to leave it there with no context. I'm going to listen to this back like, what the hell was I talking about?
It is my name for this call, just for anyone that's wondering.
That's his actual name, actually.
Yes, my legal name.
Bigger is his first name. And then, I get the rest. But speaking about Bigger, man, Bull Nakano. She is... this is actually first time watching Bull Nakano for me, honestly. And I can see where your sexual fascination with her comes. Because, man, she thick. And...
Why do I even say that? For some reason, Bull Nakano has just become like my inside joke that no one understands. It's like my own inside joke. So anytime on Twitter when someone's like, "Who's the greatest wrestler ever?" I'm like, Bull Nakano, or like it's like Bull Nakano is my answer to wrestling anything.
It's a surefire way to stop any conversation.
Absolutely. And the funny part is Rachel Ellering, Paul Ellering's daughter. I had said something about Bull Nakano. And she really is into Bull Nakano. So she retweeted what I was saying and then randomly sent me a picture. She's like, I have a Bull Nakano lawn gnome. And she sent me the picture. Super weird, but so fun to have. I was like, you know what? All the Bull Nakano jokes were worth getting that picture of that gnome.
Do you have one now?
Do I have a
Nakano
Bull?
gnome?
I'm painting it myself. It is a little project I'm doing.
You're molding it out of clay?
Yes. It's not done yet, though. I can't get the hair right.
It's a tough one. You need a lot of Gorilla Glue for that.
Yeah. I need to mold the hat into hair, basically. Now I want to do that. Damn it! Now I want to go get a lawn gnome and like repaint it to like Bull Nakano.
You should. I'll have you on again, and then you'll give us the update on your gnome status.
That'll
take us through the process.
Thing on social media.
Love it. It'll catch on. Anyway, train wreck. So yeah, this match, honestly, like we alluded to earlier, a really good women's match in an era where you did not see that at all.
Right.
I mean, like WrestleMania 10 was the last time I remember seeing Alundra Blaze. Like,
man, that match was stupid. Period. Let's be honest. Like, they had Leilani Kai or whatever come back after like 10 years.
Exactly. It was essentially just like a novelty, this lady was at the first WrestleMania.
Exactly. And hey, let's have a women's match. It's like such a throwaway, which is sad, like to think that the state of the women's division then, and, it didn't last long. I mean, Alundra Blaze was the women's division. Obviously, you know what happened with her. She took the title, dumped it in the trash, which I feel set the women's division back, for at least in terms of the WWF.
Yeah, for sure. For at least 3 or 4 years after that.
Right. And I mean, it didn't start picking up again until I would say Trish Lita, that sort of thing. So it's crazy to think about how many years that was in between.
Yeah, it's crazy. I will say, Alundra Blaze wins this match in particular with a beautiful German suplex. I know you were hot that Bull Nakano lost.
That bridge, that I can't even be mad at that bridge suplex because it is so
framed and hung on my wall.
Oh my god, she hits like the best German suplex. And then I mean, I need you, since she accompanied Bull Nakano, I think I need your best Luna Vachon impression.
Well, Kenny, from Kenny of Her Thoughts. I don't know. I'll get you.
You think that's her sex noise too?
Oh God, I don't know. Ask Bam Bam Bigelow. Because the funniest thing, it's such an inside joke between a friend and I. But the whole WrestleMania 10, accompanied by his main squeeze, Luna Vachon.
Oh no!
Howard Finkel saying it too makes it all the better.
I think Howard Finkel had hair on that show, so it was all.
Oh yeah, let's not even.
It was all downhill. It was all.
Please, let's never mention the hair, and the tuxedo matches. None of that.
Ooh. When does that happen? The tuxedo match?
I think that was WrestleMania 10, if I'm not mistaken.
Was it?
Yeah, sadly
I must have blocked that out. I watched that a few months ago.
Harvey Whippleman, and I might have to Google this one. Harvey Whippleman and Fink tuxedo, and this is WrestleMania. WrestleMania 10 was when he tore up Fink's tuxedo, and I guess they had
planting the seeds.
And now listen to this. It culminated in a tuxedo match on the January 9th, 1995 edition. So this was a 6-month build.
So we're still getting there. We're still building our way to that's right. What this whole show is.
This whole show, SummerSlam 94, is a build to the inevitable match between Harvey Whippleman and Howard Finkel.
Man.
Crazy.
The show just keeps adding layers. Adding layers.
Exactly. But Bull Nakano lost, so unfortunately there was some sadness at the show too.
Some sadness. And one thing I did notice about this match, I guess the whole show in general, is that the crowd was super hot for it. And it's
because it's SummerSlam, it's the hottest event of the summer. Yeah, a dad joke, I know.
Next match.
No, but it's funny you were saying it. I've watched, truth be told, I didn't go back and watch SummerSlam 94. It's an event that I used to rent from the video store growing up often, and I've watched it multiple times on the WWF network. And something I recently noticed, like you said, it's so funny because it's let's be blunt, it's not the best event ever, but the crowd is so hot. And it's I missed that time period where people were just hot for professional wrestling. And it's it didn't even matter what happened at the event. They were just completely unglued. And fun fact, I don't know why I know this, but fun fact, This was at the United Center in Chicago. So that venue had only opened up 11 days before. So maybe that's why they were super hot. But they've never gone back. They've always used like I don't know what it's called. Yeah, I don't know what it's called now, but yeah, the Rosemont Horizon.
Right.
They've only used that. So they have not used this arena again.
It's probably cheaper, I would assume, being
I would
right
assume
outside
that,
of Chicago.
I assume scheduling too, because obviously you got to deal with like, Bulls games and things like that.
Yeah. And I guess, Chicago's has always been a wrestling town, so that contributes a lot to why the crowd was so hot too.
Right.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, like a crowd can make or break a show, because like WrestleMania 10, for the most part, the crowd was pretty dead. But
which
like,
is weird. It's New York.
Yeah, it's New York and it's WrestleMania, and I mean the matches were about as good as they were on this show for the most part. So it's like really
just
shows like how important it is.
Exactly. And that's why like you got to give kudos like currently in the pandemic era to like these wrestlers doing such a good job without a crowd. It's unsettling. I mean, you can see in this show SummerSlam 94 that people are stepping up their performance because of how hot the crowd is.
Yeah, for sure. Just snowballs and makes everything better.
Yeah.
Including this next match for the Intercontinental Championship. We have Diesel, the champion, versus Razor Ramon, or however he talks. We have so they had Walter Payton out there, not Art Donovan, which made me sad.
Hey, how much can this Razor fella cut? Huh?
Oh no, he's not that clever, I don't think. He'd just be like, "Hey, what's the deal with the hair on his face?
Hey, how much grease does this guy have in his hair, huh?
Well, what is he like a gas station or something?
Was he Italian? Are you grease ball? Or you said something really ridiculous like that.
Very much so.
That is racist, Art Donovan. Stop.
Very offensive and nonsensical.
But speaking of which, Walter Payton with his full-faced Razor shirt, it just jumps at my mind. Like I don't need to go pull that up. I just remember Razor's big old face being on Walter Payton's chest.
Are you going to say like oozing machismo or something?
Damn it. He was oozing machismo. God, Walter Payton looked ridiculous. This was definitely the mid-90s here.
He looked like small in comparison to everybody else, which is hilarious considering he's a football player.
Right. But then you start realizing like Razor's like 6'6", Diesel's like 6'10" at least. I know they advertise him as 7 foot. Shawn Michaels is on the smaller end of things as a wrestler at the time, and he's 6'1". You know what I mean? So, and Shawn Michaels was probably the most jacked he's ever been at this time. So, Walter Payton definitely
than everybody.
He was definitely out of place here, which is so weird. Like you said, he is a football player.
But I will say this, though. This is like where you use a local football player, not in commentary.
Right. We talked about this before randomly, even though we weren't talking about King of the Ring 94.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is how you use a local legend. You have them come out with a hot superstar, so that they can add some credibility there, as opposed to doing commentary all night.
Dude, half the crowd doesn't even know you're sitting there. It's just a shit show. But yeah, I mean, Walter Payton, he comes out with Razor and the crowd pops hard. And then automatically at that point, you got your money's worth with him, because it's really all he needs to be there for is that local, add a local charm to the match, I guess.
A couple pictures, with the new champ. But I mean, that's about it. You know what I mean? He did his job.
Couple little minor involvements in the match, and you get like you said, a few pictures, and they could show, put in the newspaper or whatever they had in 1994.
Newspapers,
really all it needs.
Definitely newspapers.
The hell are those?
Yeah, I don't know what that is now.
That's what I used to clean up cat shit. So speaking of cat shit, we have Diesel versus Razor Ramon here.
It was not that bad of a match.
That was bad. I know. I will say, like the opening match, I enjoyed this more than I anticipated that I would. A lot of it's probably the crowd. A lot of it's both these guys, Diesel and Razor, are super young here and probably in their at least close to their physical prime. And I assume both are pretty hungry at this point, even though Click and all that. Once again, we have the Click in the spotlight here, but I know both these guys probably want to show They know the spotlight that they have, and they're probably going to show out as much as they can. But yeah, the end of this match, the real story, honestly, of this match is Shawn Michaels, the ref's distracted or whatever. Maybe Walter Payton tackled him and he's, harassing him on the floor or whatever. Shawn Michaels gets in the ring. He goes to kick Razor Ramon. Razor ducks out of the way, and then Shawn kicks, he kicks Diesel, knocks him out, and then Razor pins him for the win. So Razor wins the IC title here, but the bigger story is that this is the beginning of the breakup between Shawn and Diesel.
Right.
So yeah, a lot going on.
They had teased it in '94. They had, obviously at the Royal Rumble, he kicked out Diesel and stuff like that. So they had planted little seeds, and this, like you said, was the start of, them actually breaking up. It's kind of weird. Like, you forget that, like, Diesel doesn't win the title. Diesel wins the title short, like a couple months later after this. Like it's like the time frame when you think about it. Like, I thought Diesel like started getting over maybe another year or so, but like less than 6 months, he's a champion.
Well, how long has he been in the company at this point? It's probably like a year, right?
Okay, I'm not gonna accept that unless you ask it as Art Donovan.
How this big fellow with the funny pants? How long has this guy been here? Is he wrestling?
Art Donovan, that's Diesel.
Oh, okay.
Who's this trucker fellow with the frills?
This noise is hurting my ears. Why is it so loud?
What's this trucker noise? What's this guy? Art Donovan, that's Diesel. Yeah. He was pretty much handpicked from WCW by Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels saw him and said, I want that guy as my heater. And so he's been about a year and a half.
Because I looked up SummerSlam 93 just like to look at the card just for my own entertainment. And I think he was still with Shawn at that point.
Yeah. And I think he just started with Shawn. That's when he had the slick back mullet and stuff like that.
That's when he was still talking like a Miami guy or whatever accent he was trying to have.
Oh my God. Man, I forgot about that.
If you go look at his like early promos, he talks like Razor Ramon pretty much.
He still had that like Vinny Vegas accent from WCW.
Yeah, he was a combination of Vinny Vegas and the what was the wizard character he had?
Oz,
yes. It was an amalgamation of all that plus Diesel, and that's what came out of his stupid mouth.
That's a big word.
Amalgamation. I couldn't spell it. I don't even know if I pronounced it right, but
No, I like big vocabulary. And Bold Nakano.
If I know anything about you, you like it big and you like it bull. Speaking of big bulls, we got the next match here. Lex Luger versus Tatanka. Man, oh man.
Weird match.
A weird match and a weird storyline. I guess not that weird, but just kind of
it was weird. It was weird.
It was kind of weird.
It kind of I feel like it took the wind out of Lex Luger's sails. Because I saw the storyline live. And I remember it being awkward because I think they did something that they didn't realize would happen. I know they were trying to add layers to this, but let's recap. Lex Luger was set to win the title at WrestleMania 10. Last minute kind of went to Bret Hart, and they decided Bret Hart was the guy. So Lex Luger was going to be the guy that picked the ball up and ran with it after Hogan left. And so now they're taking him in another direction. And to be honest, as a 5-year-old fan, I was behind Lex Luger. And then they did this storyline where they teased like he was turning heel and he was going to be a bad guy. And he fell out of, that babyface role for me. I literally stopped liking him after this, regardless of the results of this storyline. They literally made me not like Lex Luger.
Yeah, I mean, even like best case scenario, it probably plants a seed of uncertainty in the fans that really love Lex Luger. And when you watch this match and you see these guys come out, I mean, both of them get like mixed reactions at best.
Right. That's kind of what I'm insinuating. It's like it's a weird thing because even regardless of who turned heel in this, it was like you took the momentum out of the other guy too. And let's recap, I guess, the storyline, which was it was teased that like Lex Luger was going to the corporation and Ted DiBiase was insinuating like, oh, this is, he's coming over to my team. and Tatanka's burying him, literally like saying things like, "You sold out. You were supposed to be the hero, and you've turned your backs on all these fans." And yeah, so there's a lot of disparaging remarks about Lex Luger at this time. So I guess I don't know if he had real life heat in this situation or what. Like Vince lost faith in him, but yeah, this definitely took the wind out of his sails.
I feel like it's probably a combination of that and kind of what you alluded to earlier. They probably saw this going a different way, because to kind of expand on the storyline that you were kind of laying out there. So like Ted DiBiase would put money, like a stack of money in Lex's hands, and then Tatanka would see it and be like, "Hey, what the hell? Yeah, you're with him." And then he would, Lex would be yelling at Ted in his locker room, and then Tatanka would barge in like, "Hey, what are you doing? You're in the $1 Million Man's locker room, blah blah blah," or whatever, throwing spears at him and all that, and then so it's like all these little seeds getting planted that like, oh, is Lex, like the viewer, the watching it, because I did watch some of the Raws leading up to this, and it's like I feel like the viewer should be able to kind of infer that he's not with the corporation and that Tatanka is just like a miscommunication between Tatanka and him. So, ultimately, the match ends up happening. It is what it is. It's a lot of just weak clotheslines and, racist chops. And because he's Native American, so all he does is chop, right?
Oh man, we should start a podcast called Racist Chops.
I think that already exists.
Is it? Does it really?
No. I mean, maybe. I haven't researched it.
It just sounds like I don't know. It's not even the racist part of it. Just Racist Chops. It just sounds like it flows.
It sounds like a heavy metal band or something.
Right.
So yeah, the match happens, and then Tatanka ultimately wins with a schoolboy as DiBiase, who's ringside. Ted DiBiase. He's distracting Lex Luger. Tatanka rolls up behind him, rolls him up for the win. And then after the match, Lex is kind of yelling at Ted DiBiase, like, "Why'd you distract me?" et cetera, et cetera.
And Tatanka's hemming it up in the background. He's got the hands on the hips. He's got the hands up, and he's like shaking his head, like, what happened kind of thing.
Yep. And I mean, looking at it in hindsight, I probably should have seen it coming because I did watch the show like a few days ago.
I didn't see it coming either. Don't feel too bad because I don't know. This is the time when kayfabe's like really, really heavy. So like I don't think I would have been like, "Oh, it's Tatanka, he's gonna turn heel." Like, no, I didn't see, especially he was Native American. You know what I mean? Like he had this positive character.
Mm-hmm. He's pretty much been a babyface this whole time there, right?
Undefeated for a long time. So I didn't see this coming. And then he does the double axe handle, I think. Right? It just
something like that, yeah.
Hits Lex Luger in the back, turns heel.
Hits him with a few Samoan drops.
I think that was bad, though. You have, like, I don't know, in my opinion, you have a Native American, like, selling out for money. Like, I thought it was, like, probably the wrong move for, like, that culture.
I didn't even think of it that way, but god damn it.
I thought about it like that. I was like, man, that is not, like, a positive look for that culture,
Yeah, I mean, is this when Tatanka, like, has, like, the black face paint? Like his whole face is black?
No. So believe it or not, I think that was like 2006 on his second return.
You know what? It is.
Yeah. That was like right
so
before he left when he turned heel again for some odd reason.
I forgot that happened. Man, what a time that was.
Weird time period.
So yes, Tatanka wins and then he turns heel after the match. And I will continue to watch and see how that unfolds, but I have not heard good things about Tatanka's heel run. Because like you said, it just didn't really fit his character, I don't think.
Exactly. And I think that's what it was like, you knew that like the man behind the character didn't feel it. And I think that's the problem there. Like he was a very strong babyface. Like he really was. And people forget that, there was a time period in WWF where like your mid-card babyfaces got some of the loudest reactions. And Tatanka was definitely up there. So for them to kill, like this hurt everybody involved. I mean, Tatanka went into the corporation, became nothing, became like an afterthought. Lex Luger never really regained momentum and then would obviously leave to WCW the next year because of it. So, I mean, this was as much as a kid, I was fond of the storyline. I look back on it, I'm like, man, this was like definitely this was a snowball effect on their careers in the WWF there. And
it really was.
Yeah, it's bad.
I mean, because like it's essentially a mid-card match, And I can appreciate, them, putting effort to creating a storyline for it, and not just a Jeff Jarrett versus Mabel kind of match. So they had a storyline in place, and I could see like where they thought it would go. Like everybody would hate Tatanka, and he would have all this heat, and then Lex Luger would be, have all that sympathy, and then people would really get behind Lex Luger. But ultimately, it was a lot of indifference for both guys, and like you said, it pretty much just imploded both their WWF careers, I think.
I feel like if they had done the opposite kind of storyline, it would have been better, as in like,
yeah,
a heel turning babyface kind of thing. Like I feel like it would have gained momentum. I don't know, but maybe it could be that they booked it wrong with Lex Luger. Like I feel like Lex should have come out of this on top more. But then of course that buries Tatanka, so it's like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's just like in hindsight probably a bad thing to do.
Yeah, wrong puzzle pieces, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe an okay concept, but
speaking of wrong puzzle pieces,
it's a big puzzle piece. We got Jeff Jarrett versus Mabel. We have is even Jeff Jarrett at this point, or is he Double J?
Double J.
Double J.
But you know why this match was so like awkward and random?
Why is
it was
that?
like they'd been building a storyline with Doink the Clown this whole time.
Right.
And all of a sudden it gets to SummerSlam, don't know why. It just ends up being Mabel.
Because I noticed that too, and my first thought was like, okay, maybe they just want to get Mabel out there. They want to get him over. Maybe Vince is high on Mabel, but then he just fucking loses this match. I mean the match is what it is. It's pretty short. Mabel misses like a leg drop onto Jeff Jarrett, and then Jeff Jarrett just rolls him up for the win. So it's a pretty, anticlimactic. There wasn't even a climax to be had, I guess, but what you got for us?
Nothing. I got nothing for
man. That's a
I don't even
volleyball.
Talk about it.
Yeah, it was. Jeff Jarrett is just a guy that's like, I don't know, man. I Double J had some appeal when like Colonel Parker got brought in, and he had like the best wrestler, the best entertainer, and that whole deal. But even that,
man, he was always solid. I actually didn't hate Jeff Jarrett as much as other people did. But he never seemed to crack the glass ceiling, and the only time he really did was when he was on top of his own company. He was always weird. But in hindsight, it's like I appreciate Jeff Jarrett a lot more than I did back in like '94, at just how good he was at being a chicken shit heel. Yeah,
no, his psychology was always on point. I kind of compare him to Cody Rhodes sometimes.
Yeah, no, it's a good comparison.
Because they're both, great talkers. They both understand, when they're building a storyline, they're building up to a match. They both have great grasps on that, and they're both really good at executing that. But when it comes to, actually, bell to bell stuff, I have a tough time caring about either.
I get
more so Jarrett than Cody, because I would say Cody's better than Jeff Jarrett. And just putting that out there, but
you can call him Cody Rhodes again. WWE let him have the trademark. He announced that last night.
Right. That's right. Did he actually say it? I haven't watched Dynamite yet. Did he say it on Dynamite?
He didn't say it on Dynamite. He said it on post show. So I guess they probably are getting the legality of it together. But he did flat out say, like, I'm proud to announce I have two names again. And so, of course, the crowd said Cody Rhodes instantly.
It's kind of weird at this point, though, I feel like, to call him Cody Rhodes.
I feel the same way. And then I start realizing, like, it was weird to not let him have Rhodes to begin with. Because it's just one of those names where it's like, I feel like, you don't do that to a Rhodes, a Flair, or a Hart. I mean, I guess Hart's different because it's the real name, but like you just don't do that. That's like wrestling royalty. But speaking of which,
I'm like, what? Fucking idiot.
Damn it, pick up what I'm putting down.
Oh, say it again.
Okay, let's try. But speaking of Hart,
well, we got some hearts in this next match. Was that good? Did I nail it?
Amazing. Absolutely great.
I'm a really, really good broadcaster. So this is the match. So this whole show.
Do you do me a favor, actually? Like, since you paused right there, could you pause? I have to help my daughter. Like,
are you saying you like your daughter more than me?
Yes.
You tell your daughter you're on a world acclaimed podcast right now, and she can wait.
So. Sorry about that. The one thing I needed her not to do was
What did she do?
was poop, but she did. So she couldn't wipe herself.
Well, you tell somebody not to poop, they're going to poop.
You're right. You're right. That was my mistake. Damn it.
But speaking about poop, this match was not poop. It was the so yeah, like I was saying earlier, this whole show was pretty much centered around 2 matches.
Absolutely.
And it was funny because I was watching it. I watched half like one night and then half the morning after. And then the first half was everything we just talked about. And then the second half, like the whole half of the show, was Bret Hart versus Owen Hart and Undertaker versus Undertaker.
I mean, this match is like half an hour or more.
At least, and then you have the Taker entrances and all the presentation of all that, and the lead Leslie Nielsen stuff like that all took like an hour and a half, hour 45.
It's so true. Like if people go back and watch it, you're not exaggerating at all. The second half was the 2 matches.
It was. I looked at the timestamp. I was like, holy shit, there can't be just 2 matches left. Like how long? Because I've never seen this cage match before.
You've never seen this cage match?
No, and I've always heard about it, but I've never gone and watched it.
Oh, man, this might be my Macho Man versus Ricky Steamboat match. Like this is like the match that like I remember thinking like, oh, like I'm a fan.
Yeah.
And I would do this one day if I could, that sort of thing. So this is the match, man.
I mean, it was incredible. I mean, just watching it for the first time and like watching a cage match, like when cage matches weren't as, prevalent and as cliche as they are today.
Right. They didn't just happen. They were like culminations of feuds.
Exactly. And this feud is why it's so acclaimed. I mean, it was a slow, organic build for like, a year or so, at least. I mean, when you start with whatever Owen Hart started getting resentment against Bret.
When he kicked Bret's leg out of his leg.
Was that 93?
Oh my God. So I think Survivor Series 93 to beat.
Damn it, I missed it. Go back and watch.
No, Survivor Series 93, sorry, was the initial, what do you call it, dissension happened. Right. It was Rumble 94 when the knee out of the knee thing happened. Right. That's why I kicked your leg out of your leg. You could tell like when it's escaping his mouth that he already realizes it's coming out wrong.
I was about to say, he's like, leg. Oh,
yeah, he's like that downwind. Like that's why I kicked your leg out of your leg. Poor Owen.
Oh man, I think the only thing maybe worse than that is the Booker T, the Hulk Hogan thing,
which I think was the same year, which is crazy.
It may have been. It was that same like, oh, he just rubs his hands like and looks at the ground like, oh, didn't say that.
And then Mean Gene trying to save it. Take a look at this. Take a look. I don't know how Sherry Martel and like Stevie Ray and stuff just all looked at the camera straight and was fine.
That's probably how they just talked backstage. So it probably didn't even
just call Hulk Hogan the N-word. Like, it's okay.
Man, that's some long-term storytelling. So.
Oh man! Oh, great!
But that's a whole different podcast. Yeah, we're here to talk about.
That's definitely racist chops. We will save that for racist chops.
Our offshoot. What do you call it?
Available on our Patreon.
Man,
brought to you by Bill Nakano, featuring the apron bump here.
I hate all of this. I hate all of this that we're doing right now.
Just scrap this, brother.
Yeah, let's try again another day. But god damn it, man, this cage match,
amazing.
First, I will say, so you have Owen Hart win the King of the Ring a few months prior to this. I like the King of the Ring winner getting a SummerSlam world title shot.
I will say one thing. I think this is one match I think that deserves us talking a little bit about the build, because it's not even the match. Let's talk. First of all, I want like current fans who may be like, well, I don't understand the importance. This kind of was the 94 equivalent of Jey Uso versus Roman Reigns, just kind of in a flip scenario with the up and comer being the heel. This was a storyline I think everybody was able to sink their teeth into, because who doesn't have like a bigger brother or something that they're jealous of, or
right. It's relatable
something like that. Or it's very, very relatable. And Owen Hart was in the shadow of Bret Hart and wanting to do good things and feeling like I can't get my career started because every time I do good, here's freaking Bret Hart to do better than me, you know?
Yep.
So obviously he got jealous. The one thing I want to touch on, WrestleMania 10. You gotta talk about one of the greatest wrestling storylines. How this built up was literally, I don't want to make this too long, but Rumble winners were Bret Hart and Lex Luger simultaneously. So the way that was decided was Lex Luger would challenge. It's a coin toss that decided it, but Lex Luger would challenge for the title first against Yokozuna. That the winner of that match would face Bret Hart later in the night. So what they did, obviously, that's not fair to Bret Hart because, or to Lex and Yokozuna, I should say, because Bret Hart's only going to be wrestling once. They added a second match for Bret Hart. So ingenious. Opening match, Bret Hart versus Owen Hart. The best thing about that, Owen Hart beats Bret Hart. End of the night, clean. And I'm talking clean, no shenanigans. Basically showing you like, oh, he is better than his brother. So now we build to Bret Hart winning the title off of Yokozuna at the end of the night. All the wrestlers, the babyface wrestlers, empty out of the locker room and they're holding Bret up in Madison Square Garden to fanfare. And out comes, literally in the shadows, out comes Owen Hart. And if you look at it, what he's mouthing, he's going, but I beat you at the beginning of the night. I beat you.
Not enough. Still in the shadows.
Yeah. And literally the spotlight's on Bret and he's literally in the shadow of Bret Hart. And it's one of the greatest storylines of professional wrestling history. But let's fast forward now. Like you said, Owen Hart, I should say, won King of the Ring 94, which Bret had done in 93. So now he's calling himself the King of Hearts, which is an obvious shot at Bret Hart. And so now we're building to SummerSlam 94, where a lot of people are thinking Owen's got a chance because he beat Bret clean. He's now challenging for the title in a steel cage against his brother. So this was a very, very hot storyline because there was a chance that Owen Hart was gonna win this.
Exactly. And I think all the pieces and all the time that they took to build it up, to build up Owen Hart's credibility, to figure out a way to put the title on Bret, but still have Owen Hart, have a claim to it. And then you had like Jim Neidhart in there and everything. And I mean, it's all great. It's all great. I mean, it's funny because neither guy is like particularly great on the mic. So they didn't have that to kind of rest on really. And a lot of the stuff that they did was in between the ropes or, physically, the physical stuff that they did, which I think is so impressive is that, like you brought up Jey Uso versus Roman Reigns earlier, and there are similarities there, but I think a lot of that is kind of in the vocal, the promos, the dialogue, whereas this is more of, in-ring storytelling, which is what I think makes both these guys so brilliant that they're able to do that.
Absolutely. They're both amazing workers, and you really got to see Owen Hart step it up and just take it to the next level. And like you said, I mean, Jim Neidhart and the British Bulldog, at least the Bulldog, I know 100%. I don't think we're even with the company at this time. And so in a storyline sense, as in this was their foray back into the WWF.
Right.
I've heard rumors that this was supposed to be the blow-off, which I don't know if I believe necessarily with the involvement of the family, but this was supposed to be the big blow-off, which in a way makes sense because they have the big steel cage. That's usually the blow-off to a feud.
Yep.
But I guess it went so well that they decided to continue it on after that.
Right. And I've heard similar things. And like you said, I have a hard time believing that just based on the post-match stuff. But I guess we'll get into that in a second. So the match itself, I mean, we could talk for an hour on this match. But it's a steel cage match. And another thing that I did like about this was the stipulation. No pinfalls, no submissions. You can only leave by escaping the cage. And I like when it comes to cage matches, it's just a personal preference. But to me, I want one or the other. I don't want you to have both pinfall, submission, and escape the cage. I'd rather just have one or the other because it's like, why would you climb out of this cage if you could just pin them in 3 seconds?
Right.
Kind of deal.
I like when it makes sense in a storyline. And I feel like this definitely made sense because it was like it gave the edge to Owen Hart because Owen Hart was the quicker, faster, more athletic brother. So it's like you can see him climbing out of the cage. and beat his brother that way. But if it's like a mat-based game, you would say, oh, Bret's going to win. So this gave the advantage to Owen. This is good storytelling here because it's stacking the deck against the champion. So you're gaining sympathy for him, and you're wanting to see. You're like, oh, how can Bret overcome this? And let's also give them the two of them credit because again, for people who are newer fans, this is not the cage that we have now with the the chain link fence kind of material. Which if you hit that, it's fine. These are big blue bars. These are bars that, I think Bret Hart used to say, well, when I hit that cage, I get a big old knot in my forehead, So
is that your Bret Hart impression?
I guess so. It's my Bull Nakano impression.
It's all the same.
It's all the same. But yeah, he'd get knots on it because it's literally like just inch thick bars. So credit to these guys when they did the old school. Not only that, let's also give credit for something else. Little known fact. When WWF went to NBC for Saturday Night's main event, they thought the bouncing ring was a bad aesthetic. So they brought a stiffer ring in around early 90s or so. So right now, they're in a ring that does not have any give. And the reason I want to point that out is because they do the superplex spot. That is so... like, I've been in a ring, and it already sucks. Much less a ring that's been reinforced and taking a suplex off a 15-foot high steel cage.
Yeah, I can't even. Yeah, because I've taken bumps too. I mean, just a regular flat back bump. I mean, the first time you take it, it'll make your eyes roll back into your head.
In a nice ring, like for all intents and purposes, it's got the spring in the middle or whatever, and it sucks, but you feel the give. This ring has no give.
Yeah. It's that element to it just makes this whole match even that more impressive, even though it was already impressive in its own right.
Yeah.
But I brought up, escape only was a stipulation to this match. And I liked throughout the whole match, both guys are trying to win the match. It's not just, let's wrestle for a little bit, do a few spots, and then maybe we'll try to slowly climb out of the cage. No, the whole match, there's like a sense of urgency between both guys. Like they're both just sprinting to the cage, climbing it. Owen's like jumping to the top of it. It's like throughout the whole match, there's like an element of tension there. And it's like a match that feels like it could end at any time. And I think that added a lot to like the entertainment value of this match. Is your daughter making a run in?
Yeah, pretty much. So what it is that she's in my shadow and she's trying to, she heard the Owen Hart thing. So she sympathizes with Owen Hart. And
is she kicking your leg out of your leg?
Luckily I have health insurance, so I don't really have to worry too much about,
thank God.
Yeah. But I have nothing but good things to say about this match. I really do. And it's one of those where it's like, I feel like I almost don't need to talk about it because I need people to go see it. If you don't want to watch the entire event of SummerSlam 94, and God knows you don't want to, go watch at least this match. And again, sure. I think it is the 90s version of Ricky Steamboat versus the Macho Man Randy Savage. I can see all the spots, the distinctive spots in my head. I have it memorized, in other words. Such a good. It's definitely, to me, Owen Hart's like best showing, and it really showed that. At the time I didn't see this because I was just 5 years old and I was a Bret Hart fan, but it really showed that Owen Hart did kind of belong in that upper echelon, and he never got it. And so I don't want anyone to think I'm just saying that because of his passing. It's like, no, just in hindsight, no matter if he was alive today or whatever, I look back on that and I'm like, wow. He's a lot better than I gave him credit for.
So ahead of his time, especially with this crop of guys that are on the roster nowadays. It's like him, Bret, 1-2-3 Kid, Razor Ramon. Those are like the guys that those are the new generation guys.
Yeah.
It's not the Tatanka, not Lex Luger, Yokozuna, like all these guys that they're trying to put that spotlight on. It's really a different style that's like starting to kind of come to birth. During this time period.
He was such a hybrid wrestler too. Like he could do the mat-based stuff and all that, but he was better than Bret Hart, and Bret Hart was good, amazing. But Owen added extra layers to that with his off the top rope offense and things like that. I mean, so I never understood at that time, the love Owen Hart got. I guess I was too young. But looking back, I was like, oh, I get it now. He was definitely the hybrid for those or the example for the Eddie Guerreros and the Chris Benoits and the, that and Chris Jericho's, that generation of wrestler.
I mean, yeah, this whole year, I mean, I started this kind of like watch through of this era simply because of this storyline here, Bret and Owen. And I've never really seen Owen a lot in his prime, which is around this time. So yeah, it's definitely worth watching. Like you said, if you want to watch one match from this show, I mean, you don't even need the context of the storyline, honestly, to enjoy the match. It's all amazing.
Exactly.
Live to the hype. Even, like I said, I never watched it before, but watching it in 2020, it still held up.
Absolutely.
But that match pales in comparison to what we got for you next. Get this, everybody. Get this. You ready? Undertaker versus The Undertaker.
Oh, yes, my Undertaker.
Can I say, first of all, Paul Bearer is in his prime right now. He's incredible. Like, you forget how good he was and how perfect he was for Undertaker.
Yeah, absolutely. He's built for that role. And I can't imagine like Undertaker having stayed with Ted DiBiase. Because Paul Bearer was made. I mean, literally, the man in real life was a mortician at one point, wasn't he?
Yes, I think so. Something like that.
So it's like in real life stuff. Like, of course, he was channeling from that. Like, such a good character. So Paul Bearer is so underrated because we remember the Undertaker, but we just remember the impression of Paul Bearer, but we forget how vital he was when the Undertaker could not cut promos, and not because he wasn't capable, but because his character didn't call for it. Paul Bearer was vital to the success of The Undertaker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he's got a documentary coming out on the network sometime this month, which would definitely be a good watch.
That's even better. I didn't know that, and that is I'm looking forward to it.
I think it's actually called The Mortician, so I think you're right. I think you're right on that.
I was a mortician. Oh
yeah. Fun fact: I saw live Paul Bearer get buried in cement. It was a wacky time.
It was Great American Bash 2004. I remember that.
My first ever wrestling show, and boy howdy, did that.
You saw a lot of Charlie Haas. Yeah, I saw a lot of Charlie Haas and Rico.
I saw Mordecai.
Oh man, isn't that? No, that was Judgment Day. But yeah, Mordecai was. Let's get back to Summerslam '94. I don't want to talk about.
You don't want to talk about Mordecai for a couple more minutes.
Who's the fella that looks like the Undertaker, but he's all white, huh?
Anyways, so we got once again the Undertaker versus Brian Lee, I believe was the Undertaker.
Yeah, Chains is he was known later on in DOA. So if anyone wants to know who Brian Lee was, and he was in ECW as well. So
yes, was he? He wasn't in Chronic, was he?
No, you're thinking of Brian Adams.
Brian Adams, that's who it is.
Brian Adams is Crush.
Yes.
Not Summer of '69, Brian Adams.
I do like that one better, though, if we're going to be honest. So yes, the whole premise here is that so the Undertaker was beaten by Yokozuna at the Royal Rumble in a casket match. So Yoko beats him, puts him in the casket, and then Undertaker ascends to heaven. It's a whole little deal on the Titantron there. He's like, I will not rest in peace, and then he it goes black and white, and then he
scared the shit out of me when I was that age.
Dude,
holy crap! That image of Undertaker in the casket when he does that promo. Holy crap! I remember a lot of sleepless nights.
That's the age gap between us, because Undertaker scaring me was when he abducted Stephanie. Where to, Stephanie? And he looks back in the limo. Stephanie.
Yeah! Oh man, I remember that. That was funny to me. See, that's the age difference, because I found that funny.
that whole not to get too off target here, but Ministry Undertaker, because I watched all those shows back, all the pay-per-views and stuff. It wasn't as cool as I remember.
No, I give it credit. It was still cool. Even though I cracked up at stuff, I still liked it. I still liked that it felt more akin to the Attitude Era. It didn't feel cheesy. It felt like, okay, this man really is crazy. He's going more the satanic route of drink my Kool-Aid, sort of thing, as opposed to being supernatural per se.
Right. Well, in the beginning, it was great. You know, you had him trying to disembowel Stone Cold. You had, him like slicing up Midian and like making him drink his own blood or whatever he did with him.
Right.
Like all that stuff in the beginning was great, but then once it like combined with the corporation, he kind of just fell like in the shadows, and then it was dead. But it was like very short lived. Maybe is a better way to put it.
Right. Yeah, he got lost in the shuffle. Same thing with Tatanka going to the corporation around this time. Like it's the same thing. It's like you water down a character when you just add all these people around him. The Undertaker didn't need to be with the Ministry of Darkness was amazing. When they had all these disciples and he was coming out and they were sacrificing people, putting them on the cross, amazing. But when you put the McMahons there, you're not going to be the main focal point of any storyline.
No, absolutely not. It's being a foil for Stone Cold too, that adds a lot to it. Yeah, it's a lot. But we're a few years from that here. We have so like I said, the whole premise here is, so like I said, Yoko's going to beat Undertaker in a casket match, sends to heaven, etc., etc. And then he's gone for a few months, which I think in actual life he's recouping from some back injuries or something like that. Right. He's gone from like January until now, which is like August. And so they're all like in the months leading up to this show, they're doing all these vignettes. Where's the Undertaker? Like it's just filming random people that say they saw the Undertaker. It'd be like a kid in the park, like I saw the Undertaker sliding down a slide. He was huge. And then it would go to like a guy in a donut shop, like, hey, the Undertaker came in. He ordered 6 donuts. It was like,
that's actually really good impression, because I remember that promo, and that's exactly what that guy sounded like.
It was insane. And you had all I think we touched on it earlier, but the Leslie Nielsen stuff, basically, if you've seen Naked Gun, it's that, but he's looking for the Undertaker. And it's just a lot of, shenanigans involved. And then basically you have Ted DiBiase, who claims that he saw the Undertaker and that he's going to bring him back. And he brings him back, I think it's on an episode of WWF Superstars. He brings him back, and this Undertaker comes out.
Let's talk about that, because it was kind of ingenious for Ted DiBiase to bring him back, because you also have to remember that this is only 4 years removed from Ted DiBiase bringing in the Undertaker, period.
Right.
So, debuting him. And so it wasn't very out of the possibility of Ted DiBiase bringing the Undertaker back. And also, right. let's also talk about something, because again, I feel like even if you're our age and you go back and watch it, you're going to be like, well, Brian Lee, who, by the way, apparently is the real life cousin of the Undertaker, which I never knew. Yeah, supposedly. I don't know. The internet's the internet, but right. multiple places say it. So I'll just say, I'll put an asterisk, but apparently he's the real life cousin of the Undertaker. When you got to remember that we had CRT TVs, little bubble TVs, and scan lines, and the quality wasn't too good. So when you go look back on the network and you're watching it on your 4K TV and it's upscaled, you're like, oh, that guy looks that doesn't look like the Undertaker at all. But when we were watching it back then on a 19-inch TV, bubbled, really small scan lines, we believed it. It looked like the Undertaker. So again, I want people, when they watch it back, to kind of give it a little bit more, like to understand that they got away with it back then, compared to when you go back and watch it now.
Yeah, and even the first time I saw this show, actually, you were bringing up like the video stores earlier, and it was like 2000, 2001. I went to Blockbuster, and there was always a section that was dedicated to like wrestling. And I saw the cover art was Undertaker versus Undertaker. I was like, what the fuck is that? Because I started watching wrestling in like 98, 99. So that whole era was completely foreign to me. So I got it and I watched it, and I was like, how the hell did they do this? How are there 2 Undertakers in there? Right. So like you said, and it was probably like 2000, 2001. So even back then, TVs weren't near what they are today. And I was able to get sucked into it at that point too, plus me being younger and all that. But still, I mean, when you look at it, when you put yourselves in the shoes, kind of what you're alluding to of the times, it does make sense. And yeah, I feel like, if you look at gray Undertaker and you see that's not the Undertaker, but that's not how it was in 1994.
Right. Yeah. And that's, I just want to point that out because, again, I feel like people will go back and say, well, this was stupid. How did anyone believe this? And that's why. I mean, it really was a good storyline.
Yeah.
It was a lot better, even though we were laughing about it. It's a lot better of a storyline than it had any business being. When Ted DiBiase brought out Brian Lee, I thought it was the Undertaker because remember, he'd been gone for about 6 months too. So it's not like, especially in the buildup, it's not like we saw the real Undertaker the whole time. So we believed that this guy was the Undertaker. He looked about the same size.
His face isn't fresh in everybody's mind.
Exactly. And it's not like we're going back and comparing footage or anything like that. So we truly believed like the Undertaker was, with Ted DiBiase again.
Yep. And then we have Paul Bearer basically going at odds with Ted DiBiase, like, oh, it's impossible. I'm not going to do this whole thing, but it's it's impossible that you would contact the Undertaker when I haven't been able to. And then like a week before this, Paul Bearer is like, oh, I found the Undertaker, and then so it's that sets up the two Undertakers against each other. It's essentially Ted DiBiase's Undertaker. And Paul Bearer's
again,
Undertaker.
We'd only gotten hints of Paul Bearer's Undertaker. He showed shadows and things like that in the promo. So again, when we were going into SummerSlam, again, because I saw it live, the thinking behind it was, what the hell is Paul Bearer bringing to SummerSlam? Because how are they going to pull this off? Because, there's a supernatural element to this Undertaker character. And we're like, the Undertaker's right there. What the hell is Paul Bearer bringing?
Yeah.
Exactly. So it was surprising to see what showed up at SummerSlam, put it that way.
Yeah. Well, I will say, I mean, the match, we'll get to the match, but the whole presentation, the entrances and everything building up to it, I thought was great. I thought it was awesome. Ted DiBiase brings out his Undertaker, and then you have the real Undertaker coming out, and the set,
new look, new song.
You basically have like an entranceway with like a window in front of it, like a kind of a see-through window where you can just see the silhouette.
Yeah,
I thought that imagery of the Undertaker coming out, like just the
shadow,
his hat and his shoulders and whatever, I thought all that was spot on.
It's a fun fact. I mean, I had my action figures, and my mom had like cut out a little piece of what do you call it? Like I guess fabric, and we made this little thing out of cardboard for my wrestlers' action figures to come out of. And so I used to take like the little fabric, put it in front with a string, and then like I'd shine the flashlight on the wrestlers because I always loved the look of that set. SummerSlam 95, same thing, Shawn Michaels shadow and things like that. So that set always lent itself to some cool visuals, and that definitely added to the Undertaker's return because once you saw the silhouette, you started going like, okay, like that's the Undertaker. Like you could just feel it. It's so funny. He doesn't get enough credit, but even on screen, as soon as you saw that guy, you were like, that's the Undertaker.
Mm-hmm.
You just feel his presence. He's got such a good stage presence.
And he's only like you said earlier, he's like 4 years in at this point, almost 5.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
No, not even 4 actually, because Survivor Series when he debuted, right?
Right. Yeah. So he's coming on 4 years here.
The fact that he's already, such like a figure, like a mythical creature at this point, and he's not even a percentage of his career is a testament to the talent of Mark Calloway, I think.
Absolutely.
But his talent was not enough to get this crowd hyped for this match because. So I had a little note here. You ready for it?
Yeah.
The match was dead. Do you get it?
Oh my God. I thought there was more to that. I was like, please give me more because I can't go off of that.
It's like, because the Undertaker is undead. And
I would say
the crowd is dead.
The crowd is dead. Okay. All right.
Crowd's dead. We're all having fun here. We're all having fun here. So,
but you know what it is? It's because kind of like what I'm saying is like when we go look back at it and we see it in great quality, we're like, oh, this is kind of stupid. These people were seeing it in person. It was probably very obvious. It's not the other guy's not the Undertaker. You know what I mean? So it's like, probably in hindsight again, do you do this storyline because the fans could not suspend their disbelief here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, ultimately, I think it was, it served a purpose and giving an avenue for the Undertaker to return. Obviously, there's other ways they could have done it, but like the entrance of the Undertaker was really the main event here because the match was pretty non-existent ultimately. The Paul Bearer's the real Undertaker wins with 3 tombstones, and that's pretty much it. I mean, at no point was Brian Lee did he seem like a threat. It was really like, oh shit, the Undertaker's here, and it was almost akin to like Undertaker versus John Cena a few years ago, where the opponent's like like out of his, he's like scared and he wasn't expecting it, and he's caught off guard, and that pretty much leads to his downfall. So that's pretty much what I saw here.
And let's also talk about the fact that this led up to Undertaker facing Yokozuna later on at Survivor Series 94 and the involvement of Chuck Norris. Like, how can we? Like, come on now.
That is the all most WWE 94 sentence I've ever heard.
Right. 94 was a weird year. I understand why people don't try not to remember it, but there's little nuggets in between here that were good. Not just because Owen Hart was called the Nugget.
We're not there yet. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. King Nugget. But yeah, I mean, that pretty much brings the show to a close. I mean, I enjoyed watching this show back, honestly.
Yeah, it's a good watch.
It's just like an interesting time capsule because, like I said, I didn't watch this live, so it's funny to see. Maybe not funny, but it's interesting to see. In some cases, funny, I guess, to see these characters that I've like heard about and have read about or whatever, but I haven't really seen much of in action, like Bam Bam, Bull Nakano, the Owen Hart stuff, like all that stuff. It's very fun to go back and watch where this company was at the time and where wrestling was at the time, because we brought it up earlier. It's kind of the beginnings of like what would be one of the best eras in wrestling, with all the competition amongst WWF, WCW, and a little bit of ECW in there. It kind of all starts at the end of this summer. So
yeah, and that's like I said. I mean, you got to remember, this is the time period where Shane Douglas is throwing down the ECW title. Hogan's debuting in WCW. This was a hot time in professional wrestling, and sometimes we forget that these things were happening simultaneously. And that it's always cool as a wrestling fan to kind of go back and remember that. Like, oh, this was happening in the WWF while this was happening in ECW while this was happening in WCW. This is actually the last appearance of the Macho, or at least a pay-per-view appearance of the Macho Man Randy Savage. He had a fun little segment here. But you can see why he left, because he was like just being used part-time and being used essentially as a talker at this point. And
I will say though, because I like I said, I watched the Raws leading up to this, and he's on commentary for all of them. And God damn it, there is nobody more entertaining than the Macho Man.
Absolutely. And that's probably what Vince was saying, was like, hey, let's transition you, get some eyes on the younger people, but we can still have the Macho Man's presence. But obviously Macho Man didn't agree with that. He wanted to be in the ring too. And yeah, I mean, in hindsight, probably it wasn't the best idea to try to freaking retire the Macho Man Randy Savage, essentially.
No, he had a lot left in the tank.
Yeah, definitely. And but yeah, this is one of the last appearances, and he would end up going to WCW just later that fall. So weird transition time period for wrestling.
Weird transition time period. And yeah, I mean, that's really like the whole premise of this podcast is like, I saw, we'll do this episode on SummerSlam, and then the next one will be Bash at the Beach, and then the next one I'm gonna do an ECW episode. So, and I like, going back and seeing like all those transitions and like how each company kind of influenced the other company, and like guys flipping back and forth, and crazy time in wrestling.
Absolutely.
But yeah, any other thoughts? Any other Bull Nakano or any other thoughts?
Yeah, I think Bull Nakano, Alundra Blayze should have been the main event.
It really should have.
They should have switched the Undertaker match and the Bull Nakano match. And I think
they should have had Bull Nakano versus Bull Nakano.
That's what they should have done. Right.
They should have done. What a missed opportunity.
Mr. Fuji being like, I have the real Bull Nakano. I think the printed money. In fact, I'm going to tweet that right now.
Is it too late? Is Bull Nakano still alive?
Well, first of all, Mr. Fuji's definitely dead. So, yeah, Bull Nakano's absolutely still alive. How dare you?
They'll just have like Asuka as the other Bull Nakano.
Yeah, that wouldn't work.
No, they're okay, never mind. I'm going to keep that one in the old noggin.
Please do.
Yeah.
How dare you disrespect Bull Nakano? God rest her soul. She's not dead, but God rest her soul.
So you can still bless it.
Yes.
Well, on that note, yeah, man. Honestly, thank you for making. I know you have your daughter and all that, and whatever signing mortgages or whatever the hell you say you do for a living.
Beg on the corner of the interstate. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for making the time to do this, and we'll surely do this again. I'm sure.
No problem, man. I love being on this podcast, shooting the shit with you. It's always fun, especially got to talk about one of my, believe it or not, favorite events, even though it's not up there, like it's not the greatest event in the world. I just have fond memories because I think this is when I really started analyzing and really enjoying professional wrestling more, because I was getting a little older and kind of understanding it a little bit better, understanding that wrestling wasn't real, you know what I mean, and kind of like still having fun with it. So this fond memories, man. I remember this event vividly.
Yeah, because I watched WrestleMania 10 and King of the Ring 94 recently, and I was pretty underwhelmed by both of them. But I had a lot of fun watching this show for whatever reason. I think it was top to bottom. I think it had a little something for everybody.
Absolutely, I agree, man. And so thanks for having me on and getting a recap of this event. Forgot how good it was. Sans Lex Luger and Tatanka, but
that was all great. I don't know what you're talking about.
It's like the ex-girlfriend that I'm like, why did I date her?
We'll dedicate another episode just talking about the Lex Luger Tatanka saga.
Please. And then we have to do it in the voice of Art Donovan.
Oh man, that's must listen. Must listen.
Who's the fellow with the American flag, huh?
Is he one of the wrestlers?
Who's the fellow with the tomahawk chops, huh?
Yeah. Tear in his eye or something.
I remember that commercial.
We're giving Art Donovan too much credit.
We are, because seems a lot smarter than he would be.
Yeah, he's not. He's not.
Right.
Should just end it there.
Yes.
Who baby? Once again, thank you to Kenny for joining me once again on the podcast. Loved having him for the King of the Ring 2001 episode. And it was fun to get him back on here for a different era of WWE, WWF. And if you liked the nonsense that spewed out of our mouths on the episode that you just listened to, and if you haven't listened to that King of the Ring 2001 episode, it's pretty much the same thing. Pretty much just a bunch of hullabaloo and shenanigans, but a really good time as well. So listen to that. Listen to all my episodes, you fucks. Listen to them twice. And... just kidding. Not really. So that brings Daddy to a close. That was just a weird thing to say. What a weird phrase that was. I'm never going to say that again. I'm just going to end this now before it just gets more terrible than it already is. Thank you guys once again for listening. I am hard.